Hey everybody, this is Chuck Marone with Strong Towns. I want to talk to you today about the American Society of Civil Engineers and their recent infrastructure report card. I've been doing Strong Towns long enough where I've written about many of these. Back in 2011, something like that, I called the American Society of Civil Engineers and the people who trumpet their report cards a cult. I actually wrote that in my first book too. These people are a cult of infrastructure. And by cult, I'm trying to express that they repeat these kind of beliefs that they have. They wrap them up in this veneer of credibility, and then they just repeat them and believe them without really thinking it through. This current report card is no different. Let me give you some of the highlights. They always give the nation's infrastructure a grade. The grade this time went from a C minus to a C. And you're like, well, good, at least we're improving, right? But between the last report card and this report card, you know what happened? We did the largest infrastructure spending bill ever in the history of humanity. There's never been a bigger bill. There's never been a bigger surge in infrastructure spending. We spent $1.2 trillion on infrastructure, and we moved our grade from a C minus to a C. Imagine that the Department of Education came to us and said, our average reading scores around the country are at a C minus. We want to make the biggest surge in education spending in the history of humanity, and we buckle down as a country and we say $1.2 trillion. And what happens is that we move from a C minus to a C. We would be livid at teachers. We would throw teachers out on the street. And you know what? Rightly so. That would be absolutely insane, right? Yet, here's the American Society of Civil Engineers, feigning credibility, saying, hey, we moved from a C minus to a C with the largest investment ever. Here's what you need to know about what really is a propaganda organization. It's like an industry propaganda organization spouting industry propaganda to try to get more money. I mean, the American Society of Civil Engineers is simply a lobbying organization dressed up in the veneer of technical credibility. And I say this as a civil engineer. This organization does not represent me, and it doesn't represent most civil engineers. In fact, there's a long list of civil engineers that have emailed me, written me, talked to me saying, this is pathetic. This organization is sad. They don't represent us. Let me give you the numbers. In 2017, the American Society of Civil Engineers said our infrastructure backlog was $2 trillion. By 2021, that had grown from 2 trillion to 2.6 trillion. Now, let's say none of this prompted any hard questions, right? None of this prompted any, geez, we're the people who are building this infrastructure. What's our role in this? No, the whole thing was just a call for more money. We need the federal government to step up. We need the Congress to step up. We need more money. That's all it was, a money grab. It was no reflection, no discernment, no asking tough questions of yourself, just more money. So in 2021, 2.6 trillion with a T, trillion dollars. That's how much our backlog was. After that, we had the biggest bill ever, $1.2 trillion for infrastructure. Went from a C minus to a C. Guess what our backlog is now? Is it less? Heck no, it's not less. That would defeat the whole purpose. Somehow we went from a C minus to a C, but our backlog went from 2.6 to $3.7 trillion. What amount of spending would it take to close the backlog, American Society of Civil Engineers? What amount of spending do you need to get us to an A? This is nuts. We're the richest country in the world. We have more wealth. We have more spending. We have the largest economy. Here's the thing. We have the most infrastructure. We have the most roads per capita. We have the most sidewalks per capita, the most pipe per capita. We have a massive largesse of infrastructure that we have built without any sense of how we would maintain it, whether it generates enough tax base or enough wealth to actually sustain itself, whether it was even a good investment or not. Here's the good news. The American Society of Civil Engineers infrastructure report used to come out to great fanfare. Their representatives would get invited on cable news, be on the front page of the New York Times. They get invited to the White House and the Congress to testify. You know what happened this time? Crickets. Yeah, there were a couple little articles that showed up, but nothing that big. You know why? Because these people don't have any credibility. And people are starting to grasp that. People know that and understand that. I'm a civil engineer. I would love an organization that led civil engineers in doing their job, which is not begging for money, but making good use of the money we have. Not going to Congress and saying, hey, let's get from a C to a C plus with another $2 trillion. But actually going to their members and saying, how do we help you build better infrastructure in your city? Infrastructure that you can afford to maintain, infrastructure that actually makes your community wealthier and better off. How do we help you be the engineer that you went to school and signed up and took tests and did all the stuff to become? That's the kind of organization that I'd like to see. Instead, we've got this infrastructure cult called the American Society of Civil Engineers. And stop listening to them. Most people have.